We are on the threshold today of a tipping point of a new business reality for which I believe many, if not most companies and their business leaders are completely unprepared. The signs are all around us. They're in plain sight, but we do not see them because we continue to see the world through the social lens of a 19th century management model that is rapidly losing relevance. This new world, I call it the wiki world. Wiki is the Hawaiian word for quick or fast. And what certainly characterizes this world we are in now, it is a permanently fast-forward world. That may explain why there are so many change management initiatives, but I don't have to tell this group more than 75% of change management initiatives fail. Perhaps that's because the notion of change management is probably an oxymoron. Because to think that you could manage change is to imply that you could somehow control change. I got a surprise for you. Change is going to happen, whether you approve it or not. You can't control it. The central business challenge facing companies today is not whether or not they can manage change, it's whether or not they can manage at the pace of change. And that is an entirely different proposition, because the only way that you can manage at the pace of change, especially if your company is a top-down hierarchy, is you will have to change how you manage. Despite all the rhetoric about how important customers are and listening to customers, top-down hierarchies usually start with what is most important to the bosses. You may have seen the recent CNBC special that focused on Ford and its remarkable turnaround. Alan Mulally, their new CEO, when he came in, one of the first things he did, he took the senior leadership team, he put them on a plane, he flew them to Connecticut, to the offices of Consumer Reports. They sat down. As Alan said, Consumer Reports, boy, do they have data. And they were more than willing to share all the data they had about their Ford vehicles. And as they sat down and gave their report, it was one ugly picture. And they weren't too far into this report before a couple of the Ford executives started saying, well, I know that's what the data said, but you need to understand. After this happened a couple of times, Alan Mulally stopped the meeting. And he looked at his colleagues and says, we are here to listen, and we are here to take notes. He was reminding them, we are not here to advocate or explain what is important to the bosses. We are here to learn and understand what's most important to the customers. And these good people at Consumer Reports are going to give us a window into what's important to customers. And so for the rest of that meeting, they listened and they took notes, and they went back to Detroit, and they used that as their roadmap. If you sit down with Consumer Reports today, you are going to get a much prettier picture about Ford vehicles. Now, whether Ford makes it to transforming totally to a peer-to-peer network remains to be seen. They have work to do, but they are off to a good start because they understand this first rule of understand what's most important to customers. In every one of your organization, there is an incredibly rich resource. In most of your companies, it is your richest resource. It is fully paid for, requires no investment. It also happens to be the most untapped resource in almost every company, and it is the collective knowledge of your own people. What top-down hierarchies lack are the processes to tap into it. Fully paid for, already exists. On January 2nd, 2001, Larry Sanger met with his old friend Ben Korovitz for dinner. Ben was moving to San Diego. Larry had moved to San Diego a year earlier to take a job as an editor for a startup online encyclopedia called Newpedia. And over that dinner, Larry was sharing with Ben what a rough year they had, despite the fact that they had assembled an incredible group of academic experts and then put in place a sterling example of the 7-step review process that every good encyclopedia should have. At the end of this first year, they had a grand total of 25 some odd articles. Larry looked at Ben and said, at this pace, we'll be ready at the start of the 3rd millennium. So Ben looked at him and said, well, have you ever heard of the WikiWiki webpage? He said, what's that? He says, well, it's this software application that the software specialist has. It seems that in every computer system, there's a basic set of routines. They're non-proprietary, they're standard. And these software specialists said, why should we keep recreating these every time we start a new program? Why don't we just have them sitting out there in cyberspace in common, and we can all, and as a matter of fact, we'll make it really superlative because we'll all work on it together and anybody can use it. And since it's non-proprietary, there won't be any problem. He said, you might want to look at the WikiWiki website and you know, bring that to your encyclopedia. So Larry goes to his boss, Jimmy Wales, and tells him about it. And Wales says, oh, I've been hearing about this WikiWiki website. Let's do it. So on January 10, 2001, the wiki software is added to Nupedia, and the academics go ballistic. There is no way that the masses can make a contribution to the scholarly pursuit of building an encyclopedia. They are outraged. They said, we will not be part of rabble-rousing with the crowd. Wales throws up his hands and says, okay, guys, you win. And 5 days later, on January 15th, 2001, wiki software is removed from Nupedia. But Wales says, you know, I still think this is a great idea. So he decides to start a second project. And Larry dubs that Wikipedia. And you know the rest of this story. None of us have ever heard of Nupedia. And every one of us is using Wikipedia. Larry Sanger, Jimmy Wales make an incredible leap to extraordinary performance because they learn how to leverage collective knowledge. If you want to be designed for innovation, you find the mechanics in your company that work, that hold people accountable to their peers. The leader's role going forward is not to be the boss, it's to be the facilitator. The leader's job is not to persuade people because they are the smartest person in the room. That is an illusion. None of us is smarter or faster than everybody. The leader's job is to create the circumstances in which we get quick access to the collective knowledge. There is no doubt in my mind, I've never met most of you before, but every one of us together is far, far smarter than I could ever hope to be. And if we had to do something that got thrown in a room together, I would trust your collective knowledge 10 times out of 10 times before I would trust my own. And that's just not even... One of the things we discovered is, my God, we work with incredibly, powerfully intelligent people. Colorado has intelligent people. We're just touching the first level. The real intelligence is when you can access Colorado's collective knowledge.